What'd you say?
You can share.
Need to show we got.
All right, let's call the meeting to order and we'll get moving. Want to do roll call, Becky?
Bob Olson.
Yeah.
John Nicholson.
Yeah.
Mike Copine.
Here.
Jim Sheeline.
Here.
Chris Norberg. We got Danielle Allen. Here. Doug Farster. Marilyn Shippert.
Present.
Tom Wilson.
Present.
Go down to meeting attendees and visitors. We'll go around the room. We'll start with Dave Anderson. Do you have anything you want to?
Not
Nothing?
that you take the resolution if you have questions.
Greg?
Nope.
I heard last night, or I heard that Ogle County tabled was there issues with that or?
I think the main question was whether it was going to be a taxi district or not.
Okay,
And despite us saying throughout the entire process that it would not be.
Andy?
Yeah, here for enterprise zone amendment that we're working on, as well as the resolution that is on the agenda.
Dave, are you guys in the back? Nothing? Nancy?
Nope.
Okay. I think that got everybody. All right, we'll move down to the minutes. Everybody a chance to look the minutes over? Any changes or corrections? If none, we'll let them stand as read. Down to the review of the claims provided by the Claims Committee. Everybody? Yep, they're in your folder. All the claims, everybody get a chance. Any questions? I'd entertain a motion to approve them. Oh, I guess we don't need to approve them. We approve them at county board. My lovely assistant told me that.
She's whispering in your
I
ear the
know.
entire
I
time.
feel like somebody's talking to me. Yeah, well, the way I got it written here, I thought we need approval. So, all right, full board approval. I get it. Reports from committee chairs. I'm sorry, everybody. Go ahead, Jim.
All right, Finance Committee just met this morning. Main thing that's coming out, we've got the 3 Joseph Meyer trustee resolutions for the month needs to be on the agenda. Then the ARPA recommendations, the approval of the 2 community service applications, and then the 4 general funding requests were all approved as presented and need to be moved on. Other than that, we've got Kevin Marks coming in full county. He gave us an update in Finance Committee. And then Andy's deal on the resolution that he has to present to us. So that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Jim? Nothing for Mr. Schilling. Thanks, Jim.
You bet.
We'll go to you, Mr. Copine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Safety met yesterday here. The highlight of the meeting was a discussion on UTV and the current ordinance of where it's at right now. After a considerable discussion over it and some of the further actions of withdrawal from participation in it due to TORMA, the committee, there was a motion that was made and passed to forward it to this committee with no recommendation. So for further discussion.
So we'll put it on the agenda and hopefully vote it down, correct?
Well, I'm not going to agree with hopefully vote it down. I'm afraid that it's going to go that direction with the liability issues and everything that are coming about.
I think that's the direction the county needs to go, in my opinion.
I don't think it'll make.
So we'll deal with that later in the thing, but I think we need to have the open discussion and discuss why we feel that, so the general public understands
And that's
our concerns.
the biggest reason we went in that direction. So we did have one more withdraw. I think Dixon or South Dixon, I don't think South Dixon
Yep.
withdrew because of Torma's explanation of the liability issue. Mr. Boonstra highlighted a few things regarding having an ordinance and not having an ordinance as to our liability as a county board. And
Changes drastically.
I
Yep.
think it needs to go for a final discussion and then vote whichever way it'll go. Mr. Boonstra updated us on the fines and collections, and that's available through the report. Of course, the abandoned buildings is an ongoing situation, and that's just a work in progress. Other than that, I think that's about the highlight of it.
Any questions for Mr. Copane? Thanks, Mike. Go to admin, ad services, Ms. Allen.
Yep, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Admin committee met on Monday, 9 a.m. The Department heads provided their updates, and the big thing for new business that is coming out of that committee is the committee assignments and restructuring for the new board in December 2022. And I know Wendy, you had more detail on that.
And despite the fact that I told you I would have more detail, Danielle, I just realized I didn't pull it up. So bear with me just a second. I'm not even sure if it got attached in the executive committee agenda. It will certainly be on the full board agenda. It is on there. All right. So in onboard, thank you, Becky. In onboard, you do have what we envisioned the committee restructuring would look like. As you know, we've been talking about this for more than a year. Once we changed and created a claims committee and took all of the claims approval process out of those the regular standing committee meetings, it significantly shortened those meetings. So the desire was to consolidate the committees. So what you see in front of you in onboard is essentially the executive committee, the finance committee, and the claims committee will all responsibilities will all remain as they are right now. The other committees were all kind of restructured and reorganized, and departments that normally reported to other committees has been restructured and reorganized. Dave's sitting in the back of the room, and I realized, Dave, I didn't get a chance to reach out to you regarding this. So this will be news to you. But we're looking now at 2 additional committees in addition to executive finance and claims. We're talking about a county services committee and a public safety and court services committee. Under county services, the vision right now is to have the assessor GIS department, the county clerk, IT, lots, which of course we know will be actually no longer underneath the umbrella of the county within the next year, ROE, transportation, solid waste, and zoning and planning. So those departments would report to the county services committee. Under public safety and court services would be animal control, circuit clerk, coroner, EMA, judges, maintenance, probation, public defender, sheriff, and state's attorney, somewhat similar to what it is right now. So that is the proposal. If you have any feedback, I think what Chris and I would be looking for is your feedback on how you think that will work. We did send out a survey to department heads, and they did give us their feedback on what they felt would work best from their perspective. If this proposal moves forward, it will actually be, we'll be seeking a vote from you next month in September. It'll all be incorporated in as part of your rewrite of the overarching board rules. We do have to rewrite the board rules because we're going from 24 to 20 members. And then of course, this committee consolidation will be the 2 key changes. Again, if there's no concerns about this, we'll be moving that forward for a vote next month. Right now, we're just putting it out there for your feedback and your comments. I can take them here today, or I'll take them, behind the scenes at a later date if you want, whatever you prefer. Just if you have any feedback, be sure and let us know.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. My question that I threw out there is properties needs its own committee, and that's, where we at with that. I mean, I know you discussed it, but what's the executive team think?
So not to interrupt the executive team, but I forgot to add this, Bob. So I'll add one comment, then I'll let you guys comment. So we did talk about it actually at length. And what I forgot to mention about this model is that we are looking at using a liaison model. So under this model, each department would have a board member liaison that they would assist them with topics for whatever it be. So our thought was that the maintenance department, as John pointed out to me yesterday, it covers a lot more than quote maintenance, but the facilities department, let's call them, would have a liaison that would kind of take the lead on all things related to what we now think of as properties. Again, that's the model. If that's not what you would like to do, now's the time to say so.
I like that model, but I just question about properties. Mr. Sheeline, what's your thoughts, or John? Go ahead, John.
As I expressed to Wendy, some of the properties projects amount to a huge amount of dollars from a department standpoint. And I don't know, Mr. Wilson, he's that back there. He can probably comment to that too. I think it deserves its own committee, just from an operational standpoint, to kind of focus in on those rather than have it underneath another committee. So it's my opinion, don't matter. It's the way I've always felt.
Any other opinions, discussion? Yes, Marilyn.
I like this model with the reduced number of board members. You can't have the existing committees that we have. You know, I think the liaison would work with the department, you know, properties or maintenance or whatever we call them. In addition to then reporting back to the committee. You know, I like this. I'll stop there.
Yes, Daniel.
I agree with what everybody has said. The only thing I would add to what John was saying is for admin right now, our meetings are 15 to 27
Yep.
minutes, right?
Yep.
So I feel like adding additional thing to call it county services does still lend time to cover it. I mean, I think it's beneficial for if you're going to come to have a meeting, I feel like we could last longer than 30 minutes and cover all the items that need to be covered.
Absolutely. I agree totally. As far as department heads or elected official, Nancy, would you feel better with a liaison that you knew one individual you went to, say you had something come up or computer purchase you wanted, or, I mean, would that be a better for department heads and elected officials, or what's your thoughts?
No, I also like that idea.
Uh,
We did put on the chart estimated times and meeting dates. Our thought behind that, really the impetus behind that came from Becky and I, because we are trying to get, so the first two meetings would happen on Monday morning, actually. And what we're trying to do here is create 48 hours that we need to have items come out of those committees on Monday and still get to finance and executive in a timely manner. So that's why we're compressing those. So the other thought, back to kind of where Danielle was going, is honestly, if we start at 8:30 and the intent is that the first meeting lasts an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, the next meeting is going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours later, that maybe board members would come in for the morning and stay and get informed on what's going on both committees, which again, all the departments are going to be compressed under these two committees. So might be, something a board member would consider doing rather than coming back on an additional day.
Mrs. Sheeline was first there.
So the liaison concept, I think, we can try that and see, go through a cycle and see how that works and see. And I think that I think it should work fine. The one adjustment to finance I'd like to make is the addition of a liability insurance committee. We talked about that and would like to have that included. And just so the committee understands also is that ARPA is probably going to drop off, here this next fiscal year. So
Jim, we did consider that. And I don't know what your thoughts are going forward. We just talked at finance about creating a property liability committee. I didn't know if you saw that as a committee that would meet regularly or only for special purposes. And if that's the case, then our language in the board rules would allow the board chairman to create a committee for a temporary committee that would work through a particular issue and then it would go away. Either way, the finance committee has under their umbrella the property liability responsibility, insurance responsibility.
So the chairman and I talked about that. My feeling is that there's some comprehensive things that need to be addressed on an ongoing basis. It's probably going to operate very much like the health insurance committee, that there's going to be times like when you go to an RFP or an evaluation of whether you go to an RFP, that there's going to be more of a demand. But I could see the liability committee meeting at least once, if not twice a year.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's simple enough to add. So I will add that.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Nicholson.
I think Ogle County, and not that we should always compare ourselves to Ogle County, but they've had this compressed schedule of meetings for a number of years. I can't remember if it's on Monday. They have virtually all their departments meet on that day, and their committee meetings are just one right after the other. it works out quite well, and that way if somebody wants to come in on a Monday and stay for a while, they can have a voice in the committee meeting. Doesn't shoot the whole week, so to speak. Right now, it kind of messes with your week when we have different committees. Secondly, I was just kind of curious with the liaison model, how much authority is given to the liaison, or just basically a informational type thing from?
I would think that liaison would have a direct link to the committee chair, that he
Yeah.
could get something on the agenda or
Right.
could, that way the chairs can work the
Curious
committee.
what you envision that as.
Honestly, we haven't delved into, we wanted to make sure this process was something that you all, appreciated or wanted to move forward with, but that's something we can certainly talk about is what level of responsibility is that liaison going to have?
Something like Dave, for example, down the highway, if he's got a culvert project like he does, that liaison could go out, view it, come back to committee and say, hey, I went out and viewed this with Dave, and not that we can't trust Dave, but at least you get, more people to discuss it and ideas. Marilyn, you had?
Following up on Jim's idea of the property insurance, assuming we're staying with CIRMA, someone from that property insurance committee should be the CIRMA rep. We learn a lot of what's going on with CIRMA at the meeting. Kelly is very protective of the data and doesn't want it distributed willy-nilly.
Yep.
Mr. Harrison that was here earlier talked about the assets that his pool had, I forget the initials, versus the assets of CIRMA. You have to look at the size, the number of people, number of organizations are in his pool versus the number of organizations that are in CIRMA, and CIRMA is very solid. I think Bob sat in on one of the meetings earlier this year. So the size of the reserves also relates to the number of entities in that pool. But my point is, if we do have that committee, that needs to be the CIRMA rep or whatever rep on that.
I would agree with that. Who chairs that? Yep. Sometimes is there a conflict there, though, Charlie, or not?
Yes, there can be. I'm sorry, I got so distracted. I'm trying to figure out what that beeping noise is.
Jim's chair.
Okay.
Yeah, maintenance department.
Yeah, I'll get right on
Or else just sit still, So anyhow, that's the only thing that going back to what we're talking about, sometimes we create a conflict. So, what's your thoughts, Charlie?
Yes, so it's going to depend on who's involved, and it's going to depend on the position that the county is going to want to take too. There's going to be different positions that go along with CIRMA, different people that may be involved as either representatives or part of the board. If you're going to put them on there, there's already this at least a perceived type of conflict that can be a part of it. It just kind of depends on who's going to be involved in that process.
Marilyn, what's your thoughts? Is there a conflict there or not?
I don't know,
I mean, you do
as
it
long as
now.
we're with CIRMA, the CIRMA rep needs to be on that committee.
Yep.
If we choose to go with another entity, then, we're not gonna have a liaison to CIRMA, obviously. We'll have a liaison to whomever.
How about if you put that rep on the committee, just not the chair of the committee?
I would agree with that. We deal with this type of conflict on a regular basis, in a lot of different boards. I mean, what Charlie's referring to is if you're
another chair.
Oh, it's the desk. The desk is falling apart, Mr. Maintenance Chair.
Write that ticket up while you get the time there.
Send a work order in.
But the real issue is the fiduciary responsibility. If you're sitting on the board of CIRMA, you have a fiduciary, you're a fiduciary for that pool, for that organization. So that's where the conflict comes into play.
Yeah.
But as long as, if that rep is on that liability committee and is just making a report, there's no, because you got other members that are making the actual decisions.
Sure. Good point. All right. I think that's all you have. I think we can move on. Thank you. Marilyn, Ms. Shepherd, do you want to do claims report?
moving along smoothly. There's not really a whole lot to report. I think we had a huge number at the last one, but it was the gap. There's a gap sometimes where there's 3 weeks between meetings, which we incurred at our meeting a week ago. And so I think it was 80 or 90 some claims.
Becky's saying 94.
94. It was a huge number, but we got through them. It seems like usually there's 1 or 2 claims that we question and send back to the department. But I'm very pleased with the process. I think it's allowing us to pull those claims from the committees, which allows this committee structure. And honestly, I think we look at the claims in more detail than the committees did.
I did no paid vacation last month and that's good. So it's working.
Yay.
So.
Don't hold your breath. We know where it will go.
Yep. All right. Any questions for Marilyn? Thank you, Marilyn. Mr. Wilson, properties?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet.
We met last Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Some of the things we've been working on, the elevator contract's been gone through with Charlie, and that's been released for construction. So we're working forward, getting all that stuff ready to go. The boiler project starting September 1st. We had to go to different sizes pumps because we couldn't get pumps until the middle of October, but we talked to Loescher and they already ordered the pumps and they're not charging us an extra dollar amount for those pumps. So that project starting September 1st, because currently we have no heat reserve. That's starting September 1st. We're getting the other boiler project out for bid. We're working through a bunch of stuff as far as on the committee is the STEP program for the maintenance, which we're looking forward to getting that implemented. I think September 1st, Wendy's going to implement the work order forms so Jim can get his chair fixed.
Yeah.
And then other than that, everything went well with the committee.
So the one boiler project is September 1st. What's the date? You think 60 days?
No, it'll take 2 weeks to get everything done. All the parts are here, the pumps, everything will be here. It's a 2-week process. The elevator is going to be, it's going to be a long process, but the second boiler project we're going to be putting out for bid hopefully in the next 30 days to 45 days.
But we're going to be running into some cold weather at that point. We're going to have to do something at that.
Well, but that boiler, we're putting a new pressure tank in, which we already have ordered. That will be here, I believe, in the middle of October.
I think so.
So that'll get us through until we replace the actual boiler sections and the pumps that we have to replace. The old courthouse, we've got 2 or 3 pumps that we're replacing. So then this system will all be brand new and updated. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I might interrupt, I just want to give a big shout out to Becky and to Greg and Tom. We have been meeting actually at 7:30 weekly on Wednesday mornings. Becky's idea, really, because there's a lot of projects going on, as Tom can attest to. And we've been meeting weekly to make sure that we've all got our little pieces of the project moving forward. So a lot happening. Takes a lot to stay on top of it. So shout out to Becky and Tom and Greg for the additional time committed to making sure we're staying on top of all the projects that are moving.
And mother.
Thank you. That is helping. And you guys do have a lot going on. So any questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Dave, would you give the highway report? Doug had a doctor's appointment. Is there anything there we need to hear about?
Really, the only thing of substance discussed was a resolution that's on the agenda. I'd be happy to talk about it now, so you have some information on that, because I do need to leave actually shortly, if you'd like to do that.
Let's go ahead.
Okay, regarding the resolution that you've got in your packet. So the federal government passed an infrastructure bill, bipartisan infrastructure law, BIL. There's about $365 billion in that. There's a $5 billion carve off for a program called Safe Streets and Roads for All. In order to be eligible to get any money out of that particular program, you have to have an action plan together. That action plan is an action plan to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on your highways. And
there is money out there, 80-20 matching grant to develop this action plan. However, as an individual county, we really probably don't have that many, we call them Ks and As, to be competitive in getting a grant together. So Blackhawk Hills kind of got all 6 county engineers together in the Blackhawk Hills region there and asked if we wanted to go together as a region and have a much more competitive grant. So essentially, we all decided that we would move forward with that. And I believe most county engineers are taking to their boards this month. The expected cost to put a plan together for the region is somewhere around $400,000. And that's not necessarily a stab in the dark, but it's an estimate. So the 20% of that would then be apportioned throughout the 6 counties and prorated based on population. So that comes out to somewhere around $12,000 for Lee County if that estimate holds up. So why do we even need this thing to begin with? Well, if you don't have an action plan, then there is no money. You will not get any money for any implementation, and that's where you actually fix the problems that exist. So in theory, we could go through all this, and it's going to be somewhat of a time commitment on my part, every county engineer's part, and then there's some commitment of funds. But in theory, we could go through all this, and there wouldn't be any projects ever done in Lee County. Okay, just straight up, so you know that. And we discussed that in the committee. And I believe Mr. Considine pointed out, it's like, well, you know what? I don't just drive in Lee County. I drive in a bunch of other counties. Friends and family don't just drive in Lee County. We drive in all kinds of counties in the region. So, if something gets fixed in another county because we did a little something, then, I think that's a reason to support. So that is the reason for this resolution, is to go together as the Blackhawk region, go together to get a grant to get an action plan built so that we can potentially get some funds for some safety projects within the region. Make sense?
Questions for Dave? Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
But this is on our agenda. We'll just put it on the board agenda.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Move to old business. I have no old business. We'll go to new business. Enterprise zone amendment for the city of Amboy, rural Lee County. Andy, you want to take that?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So what the Enterprise Zone Board is proposing to help out the Z-Best Enterprises, Z-Best Metals Company from rural Amboy. They are in the process of bringing a lot of their operations into the city of Amboy, as well as an ancillary activity just outside the city on some ground that was part of the railroad corridor there just outside the city. This is not involving their existing places that are further out of Amboy. This is adding one site in the city of Amboy and one site that is just outside the city, as well as adding the community center that we needed to have to hold public hearings for the enterprise zone. But yeah, that's what it is. It's going to use about 16.13 acres of what we have available for space. The enterprise zone can have 9,600 total acres over both counties and all the communities that are in it. That's going to leave us, after this amendment, if it's approved by the state, 456.25 acres available for future amendments.
The way I understand it, you had 10,000 between 2 counties and you split it 5,000 per county.
Roughly half, yeah, and it's 9,600, so just under 10.
Yep. So we got room to basically grow. Any questions?
Oh, we're getting close to that. That's
Yeah.
getting pretty close, especially for if we were to have a big project that needed a lot of space, that 400 could be used pretty quickly. But
I hope we
so
have
we're
that problem.
Getting close to that.
I hope that becomes a problem. So are we voting on this, or are we moving this to the,
We're looking for action to move it to the full board for vote.
Mr. Nicholson, did you make that motion? Do I have a second? Mr. Copine seconds it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Full board. Down below, we'll probably have to put on agenda then, right? Then we go to the zoning violations. D or Alice, do you want to talk on that? I really like it. I mean, did everybody went through committee? Everybody understands it? Are we voting on this? to
No,
approve?
we're not looking for action for this. This is just an FYI. We want to make sure that everybody understands this is an internal process that is going to go into effect on September 1st. It's a work in progress, so it may be tweaked as we move forward with it. And if Alice or Dee determine that there's something not quite working, they'll tweak it. Since the two girls in the back are kind of reluctant to stand up, I'll just go ahead and chatter about it. How about that? I think the most important thing, and you've probably heard me say it in other meetings, most important thing to come out of this is an increased level of communication to board members early on. So you're aware of something before you get a phone call or potential phone call from a constituent. Also, the other thing that's important is that, laying out this procedure gives structure and ensures that we're uniformly treating violations that come forward in the future. Anything else, girls in the back? All right, again, just looking for feedback. We're going to implement September 1st. Just wanted you to be aware of it.
I like it. It gives structure to it and I like it.
And one other thing with it, we are also, they're doing a really good job of going through this type of stuff, but we also are asking, once Chastain's done with Alice and all the renewable stuff, we'd like them to help us go through some of the zoning stuff that we need to clean up, that the girls have got, that they want cleaned up, and have Chastain help us with that as well.
That would be awesome if we could do that. At their direction, I would be all about that. Any more comments? Thank you. We'll move down to the RES ratifying development intent in Northeast Lee County, the resolution. We have a resolution in your packet. I think, Wendy, you want to touch on that?
I will touch on it, but the first thing I'm going to touch on is I just told Becky I put it out here. Are you seeing it? Maybe I'm not refreshed.
It's not coming up on mine.
The Rochelle Lee County conversation. John's got it. All right, it's possible I'm just not refreshed. Doesn't matter whether I've got it. There is a resolution out there in your packet. It is still a work in progress. Charlie hasn't had, I'm sorry, what? No, that's
This
the,
one's not out there, I don't think.
dang it. I put it somewhere. I don't even know what committee I stuck it on.
Page 40.
Where? Page 40 and 42, 41 and 42.
Maybe I stuck it down into the board
Maybe-
agenda
I
piece.
may be reading the wrong thing. but it
Oh,
sure looks
you're
like
over, you put it in the resources, right?
No,
I
put it on the
It's down on the bottom. Resolution of forming the joint goals and objectives, the old. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
down.
So I stuck it down under the full board agenda, which normally we don't attach documents there. My apologies, guys. Thanks, John, for having found it. So anyway, many of you have heard me talk about this already this week, but I'll just reiterate that this is kind of pulling together 20 plus years, if not 30 years worth of joint efforts between the city of Rochelle, Lee County, and the Lee County Ogle Enterprise Zone. So it's just essentially reminding you of all the work and effort, monetary resources, and our own comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2010, that this area was always designed to be a detailed planning area for the use of heavy industrial. We also know from having heard from Jason over the last few months that this area obviously is where Rochelle intends to grow their industrial base, because they're butting up against the county line. So they need the space on the Lee County side. Lee Ogle Enterprise Zone, of course, also identified this and placed it in the zone with that intent. So we're kind of wrapping up with a bow all of these things that we've done over the years. And then our goal here is to lay out provisions that we will pursue according to the current Lee County Comprehensive Plan. We were encouraged to pursue an intergovernmental agreement with Rochelle to kind of lay out the details of this plan. So we're going to take it to the next level, go pursue that intergovernmental agreement, and also pursue rezoning of that area to heavy industrial, so that we're strategically positioned to be able to take development when it comes. With that said, Andy, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. Again, the document that's in there is a work in progress. We got some tweaks to make to it after an earlier conversation with Charlie, but the full final version will be out there on the board agenda next week.
Yes, John.
CETA had substantial involvement in that also.
Yes. I don't know, Lucida, did they have?
Got money in the game.
Oh, yes, get skin in the game. Yes, yes. I meant the resolution. Yeah.
Right, and just
Yes.
general discussion.
Any other comments?
But yeah, I'll just to add and well stated, thank you. You know, this area represents a huge opportunity for heavy industry, rail served industry that would really represent and tend to be, you know, very good paying factory jobs for our region. It would definitely serve the greater region, Lee County residents. That area is set to be part of many future projects. It's in the pipeline on a regular basis and being presented as available space for projects that Jason Anderson pitches city land to. So it just, yeah, this is a great step to really reinforce the investments that have been made there and the potential that's there. Just dramatic amounts of jobs could be created there to serve the area.
I think that area, there's $100 million investment in there and we want to make sure whoever comes in there is going to create jobs. And I think that's our main focus. We want jobs, jobs, jobs. So I think this is one step forward and then we'll work on an agreement with Rochelle and we'll solidify that.
So we're not necessarily looking for anything from this committee other than to place it on the agenda for the full board vote next Thursday.
All right. Looks like I've skipped the committee assignments restructuring, but we already talked
Yeah,
about that.
that's the one that I jumped right off and
Yep.
early on and
But I
addressed.
mean, yeah, so we're going down to E, FOP holiday schedule. I think we'll skip that for now. Go to appointments. We got appointment of Brian Luke Phelan to the Compton Fire District. Okay, and they sent an information sheet with it. Are you getting any feedback when you request that or are they?
So I don't know if everybody was able to hear that, but we just got the paperwork for that. So we'll make sure and attach it to the full board agenda. That's why it's not in this agenda right now. But there has been an application for this particular position as we've recently decided we should be doing and providing to you for decision making.
All right, any more questions or comments? A raffle report, we got Abate, Illinois. Abate of Illinois. Abate. Oh. Any questions or comments? We need a motion to approve that. Mr. Sheeline moves. Mr. Nicholson seconds that. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Review a per diem report for county board approval. Did we get a chance to look at that? Vote on that. All right. Any questions or comments? I like how you put that out there, Becky. I tell you that every time, but I still like it. Go down to executive session. I'd like to entertain a motion to move to executive session for A5 ILCS 120/2C11 litigation. Mr. Coleen makes that motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Sheeline seconds it. All those in favor by going to executive session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call. Sorry.
Bob Olson.
Yep.
John Nicholson, Mike Copine,
Yes.
Jim Sheeline,
Yes.
Danielle Allen,
Yes.
Doug Forster, Marilyn Shippert,
Yes.
Tom Wilson.